Donald Trump is crashing the Bitcoin price even further down. We're seeing a massive bloodbath. Attention, folks, things are really heating up now because a trade war is currently breaking out between the U.S. and the EU. Trump is dealing massive blows to the EU and imposing a 25% tariff. This is absolutely insane. Right now, there's a lot of panic and uncertainty in the markets. We've already seen it recently. Every time Donald Trump announces new tariffs, the Bitcoin price drops. Not only has Bitcoin fallen, but so has the S&P 500 and the traditional financial market. And Bitcoin is getting dragged down with it for now. I mean, we've already partially reached the $83,000 mark here. Depending on when you watch the video, it may be that it has recovered a bit or corrected something, but what's happening right now is pretty intense. On the other hand, these are the best buying opportunities you can get right now. A lot of people are absolutely thrilled right now, saying, hey, this is awesome. Nothing better could happen to me. I thought the Bitcoin train had left the station. But now there are still some good opportunities to get into Bitcoin. What's also super funny is that Donald Trump promised us a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The Valhalla pump is going up. But now there's a Valhalla pump going down, and we have a trade war, and Donald Trump is triggering a massive crash. So that's one way it can go. I mean, this has nothing to do with the long-term outlook for Bitcoin. Long-term, it still looks bullish. I have to keep saying that. Because now a lot of people are saying, wow, Mark, you're being bearish or something. No, I'm not being bearish. I'm still bullish. But we're seeing short-term uncertainty. And I mean, I can kind of understand why the market is reacting this way, because it's just incredible what's happening here. We're also going to take a look at the statements from Donald Trump, because he says here the European Union would be founded to take advantage of the United States. So the point is that the European Union is basically a weapon against the USA. And that's just a huge deal, because that also means it could get very, very difficult for the EU in the near future. Donald Trump really has the EU on his hit list. So not only do we now have a leftist government in Germany, but now we also have Donald Trump, who potentially has the EU on his hit list. But just listen for yourselves to what Donald Trump has to say. And afterwards, we'll evaluate the whole thing too, and how things are going to move forward from here, because there are also other exciting things happening in the background.
But I love the countries of Europe. I love all countries, frankly, all different. But European Union's it was formed in order to screw the United States. I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
What will happen in these countries where the EU retaliate?
They can't. I mean, they can try.
So that's a clear warning to the EU. He's saying here that the EU is designed to harm the US dollar, to harm the USA. And now on the US side, they're imposing massive tariffs here. I mean, it's just that, for example, the EU has never really paid for its military here. Or they just always had way too little defense spending. The USA always has Germany, but the EU also provides some protection. And now Donald Trump is saying, no, that can't be, that we use our military protection and so on and don't give anything back in return. On the other hand, they have tariffs on the US. On the other hand, there are people like all the Thunderlines and the lefties. Anyway, people are always bashing the USA, bashing Donald Trump. And what do I know, right? And he says, stop now, hey, I'm president now. And that means now there's a different wind blowing here. And then we also have the S&P 500 taking a big hit. So right after that, after the announcement, the S&P 500 took a pretty big dive. So it's not just Bitcoin that's going down, but other assets are dropping too. And now we have something really, really interesting. So if we take a look at how things currently stand with the trade war. So here we have all the tariffs that are in place. So that means we have here 25% tariffs on Canada, 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on the EU, 10% tariffs on China, and now here's the really important part, fifth, potential 100% tariffs on BRICS. With rising prices expected for many goods, the markets are now factoring in another increase in inflation. So now inflation is going to rise worldwide. It's clear that inflation is going to rise in the Eurozone. The ECB is already facing inflation problems, and that's only going to get worse. But inflation is also going to rise in the USA, in Canada, Mexico, China. Everywhere inflation is going to rise. Now we have the fifth factor. Due to the potential 100% tariffs that have been announced against the BRICS, if you might, get away from the dollar. So if you're not making any trades in dollars anymore, but instead using your own payment systems or maybe even using Bitcoin. I don't know, Donald Trump wasn't very specific about that. He definitely said people need to use the US dollar. Anyone who doesn't use the US dollar is going to face massive tariffs. Up to 100%. So what we're seeing here is that, let me show you again, for example, when he announced this with Canada and Mexico, the price of Bitcoin dropped. Then when he announced this with the EU, the price of Bitcoin dropped. So whenever there were rumors about tariffs or anything like that, the price of Bitcoin reacted. And now we have the fifth potential factor, that tariffs on the BRICS nations could actually come into play, and possibly even 100% tariffs. on all countries that aren't trading in US dollars. And that would be a massive downturn for Bitcoin and for the overall global financial markets. I mean, Donald Trump says that it's bullish in the long run, bullish for the USA as well. He says that there can be a lot of turbulence in the short term. In the long run, it strengthens the markets. I'm not a fan of tariffs, but yeah, that's just Donald Trump's viewpoint, and we don't have the strategic Bitcoin reserve right now. We don't have the Trump pump anymore. Now we have the Valhalla steam. I don't know how else to put it. So the massive Valhalla candle is going down because a lot of people thought, okay, is the Valhalla candle going to go up? Is the strategic Bitcoin reserve coming? Blah, blah, blah. Now we're seeing it the exact opposite way. But I have to say this, folks. It doesn't mean that the bull market is over. We can still do it very, very easily. Going to $150,000 this year, that's super easy to handle. And we really have a lot of things coming up this year. Potentially, a stockpile could come in June. 7 Web Fund could include Bitcoin. So there are still a ton of factors that can easily not only push Bitcoin to new all-time highs, but also kick off a massive rally upwards. So we also have to consider that the central banks, let's just say they're being cautious. We're not seeing any QE yet. We're not seeing zero interest rates or massively low rates and all that. And all of this can still happen, and it will most likely still happen. And accordingly, you still have to be ultra bullish here. So I just see this as a massive buying opportunity. I'm not freaking out or anything, even though a lot of people have written, hey, are you panicking? You look so anxious. No, I'm definitely not freaking out here. Honestly, let me know in the comments who among you is freaking out right now. What I also found to be an interesting observation is when you look at the chart here. So here you can see the Bitcoin chart, but you can also see the gold chart. And if you look here, it was published in the KBC letter, where it says that there is a strong divergence here between gold and Bitcoin since the beginning of the trade war. While the gold price has risen by 10%, the Bitcoin price has fallen by 10%, even though Bitcoin has historically been seen as a hedge against uncertainty. So we can clearly see that Bitcoin hasn't shown the classic risk-off characteristics that indicate where Bitcoin can actually go in the long run. Or in my opinion, not just can, but definitely will. Bitcoin is the optimal or ultimate risk-off asset. Even BlackRock declares Bitcoin as a risk-off asset. But we see that in such a case, it does not function as a risk-off asset. Instead, we see exactly the risk-on properties so that the capital then goes into investments that are traditionally considered to be safe. The paper then shifts back into gold and so on. So, in my opinion, Bitcoin has all the characteristics to be a risk-off asset. But right now, at least in this crash, that's not the case. But we must say that historically, Bitcoin has always recovered very, very quickly and very, very well from such shock moments. And it could be that I make this video now and tomorrow the world will look relatively different. So, I also expect that maybe by the end of the week, Saturday or Sunday, we could have a pretty good idea of where things are headed, whether it's really going to drop further, or if we're actually going to see a momentum switch here. So I can really see that if 1 or 2 good things happen, or if all the papers are out of the market, we could see a momentum shift pretty quickly. But you never really know. It could really be that Donald Trump drops the next bombshell because he's just so unpredictable. Then there are tariffs for the next countries here. And then it brings even more uncertainty into the market. And then the Bitcoin market crashes even further down. But we also have to say that most of the people who have sold here were actually paper hands. These weren't long-term holders. They were short-term holders. That means those who got in at 100,000, 90,000, or 107,000 US dollars. Those who came in with the high Bitcoin price. They were the ones who sold here. And that's something you really need to take into account. So I hope you guys aren't part of the paper hands. Let me know in the comments below if you belong to the paper hands or the strong hands. So, did you buy more here or did you panic sell? We really need to keep a close eye on this because we're seeing now that Donald Trump really has the EU on his hit list. And the EU is still in its hubris. And you just think you are the paperbacks here and they can't just do whatever they want with their fellow players. But you are actually at a much, much lower risk because they don't have a functioning military or anything like that, especially the Germans and so on. They still have a functioning economy and all. Elon Musk even said he doesn't want to be in the EU. The Department of Government Efficiency is good that it's in the US because the EU has even bigger bureaucratic problems. Not only is the economy stuck here, but the bureaucracy is also a bureaucratic monster. And I made a video about that just 2 or 3 days ago. One or the other. Some of you can probably remember when I quoted the banker Herman, who is a big deal around here. And he actually said something very, very interesting here that also fits with Donald Trump's actions right now, with the tariffs. Because we're now seeing the 25% tariffs. That's the first blow against the EU. But on the other hand, Elon Musk also says that he wants to bring down the deficit in the U.S. through the Department of Government Efficiency. And it's really, really important to have a lot of buyers for U.S. Treasury bonds to simply boost the demand here. And by bringing down the deficit, you just make the US more attractive. But banker Herman suggested that the next big thing that could happen here from the US might be telling the EU, hey, you're getting the tariffs for now. That's already the first step. The second step is you now have to buy our US Treasury bonds, but be careful. If you buy the US Treasury bonds, you won't get the official market interest rates. Instead, you get no interest at all, or you get an interest rate that's just way lower than the market rate. And if you don't buy these Treasury bonds, then we won't protect you militarily anymore. Then there are even bigger problems here. And the US just has the leverage because it's the massive power, still the economic power in the world. Even though the US dollar and US hegemony are on the decline, they are still, let's say, the dominant forces here in the world. You just have to see it that way. That could really be the next blow, forcing the EU to buy US government securities. I mean, that would be absolutely amazing. I mean, one positive takeaway here is that there were the Nvidia earnings recently, and they actually turned out positive. You can see it here, the stock price is going up, and some were still speculating, okay, if this turns out bad, it could put even more pressure on the market, causing the overall stock markets to drop. And then Bitcoin is also being pulled down a bit. So that danger is definitely gone now. Now we still have the digital assets hearing today. I need to check out the videos later. I might make another video about this if something really interesting happens, because a lot of people are expecting some major statements to be made, that there could be some big announcements that might pump the Bitcoin price and the market significantly in the long run. So right now, the situation looks very bullish in the long term. In the short term, we can't really assess where it's headed now. In the medium term, we have to wait and see, but in the short term, it could still go down. We just have to look at it, which means the longer we look ahead, the more we're looking into the future. The more bullish things look right now, the more we look at it in the short term, the more bearish it seems. But folks, on the other hand, if you have the right perspective, if you see this as a buying opportunity, then there's really nothing bearish about it. Instead, we now have an ultimate opportunity to buy Bitcoin cheaply with all this paper. We get such an opportunity, maybe not for a very long time. So, of course, no one can really know exactly, but it could be that we won't get an opportunity like this for a very long time. That's why I really see record purchases at 21 Bitcoin here. 21 Bitcoin set record numbers yesterday. They've never sold that many Bitcoin in a single day, and not just 21 Bitcoin, but also other exchanges. So that's absolutely insane. And here's another reminder, if you want to buy Bitcoin, or not really a call to action, just a heads up. If you want to buy Bitcoin, check out 21 Bitcoin. Super regulated broker. Absolutely recommendable, super easy and simple, even for beginners. Even if you're new, it's an absolute recommendation. Here, you have auto wallet transfers, savings plans, limit orders, everything you need to successfully kickstart your journey with Bitcoin. And with the code, you can get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. Guys, I'm signing off. Let me know how you're feeling right now. See you later. Peace out.